Hello, everybody. Welcome to this very special webinar hosted by our team at Shopping Feeder. We've got a very special guest for you today. We had a lot of requests in our opening webinar about SEO and all the tips and tricks. How does price check rank so high? What can we do to improve our SEO? All of these kinds of questions that we thought we'd help you answer today. So, SEO is a process. There's a lot of work and theory and practice behind it, and there's nothing that we should be keeping secret. How do we do things well that other people could also achieve? We're happy to share that kind of information. And joining us today is Paul Lombard, who is an expert in SEO. He's actually consulted for us a couple of times. He's really good on technical SEO and content-related improvements. So I think you guys are going to get great value out of what he has to share today. In terms of, just a quick introduction, if you haven't attended one of our webinars before, my name's Kevin Tucker. I'm the founder and CEO of Shopping Feeder. And what we're doing during this coronavirus lockdown period is trying to share some of the tips and tricks and information that we have at our disposal, that we've learned over the years, some of the stuff that helps build a successful e-commerce retailer. And so these series of webinars, I think, will be very insightful for a lot of you, and hopefully you'll take a lot out of it. So feel free to ask questions. You'll see on the right-hand side there's a questions tab. We've got our moderator, Ben, who will be there moderating those questions. And if we see something interesting and useful, I'll just pitch in and ask Paul if he can answer those. So try and keep them related to SEO today, if you can. If there are any other questions related to Shopping Feeder or any other e-commerce related questions, we may just keep those over till the end of the webinar. So if it's SEO related, I'll try and get Paul's attention and ask him to answer some of those questions for you. So that's a little bit of housekeeping. You'll see the questions tab. We'll also pop you over some polls during the session so that you can answer those and help us get a bit of information. Other than that, I think just sit back and enjoy. Look out for a few special offers. So there'll be potentially a special offer from Paul and his team at Cartello for some really cutting-edge SEO consulting focused on e-commerce. So look out for those. He may introduce some of those during his webinar. And we might throw in a couple of coupons for Shopping Feeder. So look out for some of those as well. It's really good to have everyone here. We've got guests from all over the world, really exciting, all on different platforms. We've got some Shopify merchants, WooCommerce, Magento, OpenCart, PrestaShop, some custom-built platforms. So everyone's got different needs, especially around technical SEO, and I think it will be really interesting to hear what Paul has to say. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Paul. Enjoy it. Shout if you have any questions.
Cool. Great. Well, thank you very much, Kevin, and hello to everyone that is watching. It's really excited to be talking to people in e-commerce from all over the world. So probably not surprise you that we're going to be talking about SEO. So let me actually just minimize this window and jump into the presentation. So for the presentation, enable screen sharing. Right. So I hope everyone's doing well. I'm in Cape Town. It's in lockdown, as I suppose a lot of people are at the moment. Cool. So let's jump into it. Great. So SEO, e-commerce SEO, it's quite a topic. Good. So it's my first ever webinar, so it's pretty exciting for me. So we're going to be talking about e-commerce SEO, and my name is Paul Lombard. I'm the co-founder of Cartello, and here you can see me jumping on the beach. I'm from Cape Town, and Cartello is a specialist e-commerce SEO company. So a lot of digital consultancies, they do multiple channels, which is really cool. But Cartello, we're specialists in e-commerce SEO. So my two favorite topics. So we have a passion for tech and growth and all kinds of things related around commerce. And some of our current and past clients, obviously Kevin and PriceCheck and Namshi, Wanted, or Superblist, etc. So it'd be really cool to connect with everyone over LinkedIn. So on the presentation, I don't know if we can share the presentation afterwards, but over there, it'd be cool to connect with people on LinkedIn. So yeah, feel free to reach out. Okay, so
sorry, just to interrupt you there, there is one thing I forgot. We will share the link of the complete webinar after this, if our recording goes according to plan, and we'll be able to share the presentation as well. So all of this will be presented to all the attendees afterwards.
Okay, cool. Yeah, great. So we can share the actual presentation. So the thing is with presentations and webinars is like often they're quite abstract. So I'm trying to keep this presentation with as many try this at home as possible. So we've got 3 sections coming up. So we're going to be talking very, very briefly about the history of SEO. So we're going to watch a little video like we did in grade school, like a video day. And then the second section is really where we get into it, e-commerce SEO. And then finally, just to bookend it, the future of SEO, which I'll just briefly go through. So I really want to focus on the middle section. So I'll pause for questions, and I'll keep the presentation on like an intermediate kind of level. I know some people are watching that are quite advanced. So for those people, I'll just drop in one little advanced tidbit on every slide. So we can, hopefully the presentation is more interesting for you that way. And then what I also want to do for you guys is, I assume there's a lot of marketing people watching. Maybe there's people who are in charge of growth and they need to go motivate for spend or activity. So I'm going to try and keep it very make a checkpoint where we pause and we just say like, these are the things that you have to go do to try and make it as practical as possible. Cool. So, right, here we go. Exciting. So in the beginning, in 1998, in other words, is the beginning, according to SEO people, Google launched and the rest is history. So why did Google come out on top? I mean, if you're old enough, like I am, to remember Alta Vista, you remember Dogpile, Yahoo, Yahoo's still around actually. But why is it that Google became the market leader? Why is it that their ad platform, AdWords, was so popular that they turned into a multi-billion-dollar company? So I want to watch this little video, and here's where we're going to tempt fate and see how this goes when we break the presentation. So we're going to move from the presentation, and we are going to present this video. I just want to show you just a very brief video where this is a really cool documentary where they talk about the history and the founding of Google and the main innovation. So if I click on play video, and just before the video plays, I'll just mute. Okay, so hopefully everyone could hear that and it was okay. But so that is a really cool documentary if anyone wants to go watch it. It's quite old now, National Geographic. It's really cool. It talks about the founding of Google by Larry Page and Sergey Brin. And Kevin, hopefully you can see my presentation window again. Just let me know if you can't. And that is the really interesting part. So Google was able to discern a really interesting insight. Rather than just looking at the on-page text, they looked at the number of backlinks coming into a page to determine how important that was. And this is a monumental insight that differentiated them. And that's why, today you don't talk about AltaVista, you talk about Google. So that was a really, really key insight. And back then, if we have a look at this slide, for instance, this is what a search result used to look like. So out comes a search engine. They figure out a way of organizing all of human knowledge into searchable, usable search results. Whereas AltaVista and other search engines, you would search stuff and you wouldn't get what you were looking for. So that's why Google shot up to prominence. And if you're old enough to remember search results from the early 90s, you'll remember this kind of typical text result. That's really simple. It's quaint in today's standards. And, it was simple, but the cool thing was that SEO was really, really easy to do. You could rank overnight by just putting in your keyword onto the page, and there you go. You and I can have a website. You link to me, I link to you, and then, all of a sudden we rank. So what does it look like today? What does a search result look like today? Well, it's become far more dynamic. As things have become more commercial, the web is mainstream, the results have become really dynamic. You get Google Suggest, you get shopping ads that show up at the top. You get more ad results. You get local pack SEO, local results. So the upshot of all of this is that, yes, you have many more opportunities to gain traffic. And you can get image results, and you can get traffic via images and videos and all kinds of cool methods of getting you traffic. But not only is it more complicated in that you have mobile results that are different now to desktop results, your search results won't necessarily be the same as my search results. Not only that, but it's also obviously become far more competitive. So you're competing with your competitors online, and you're also competing with Google in terms of Google search results. So if we have a look at a typical search result, and Ben, Kevin, interrupt me if this doesn't go too well, but yeah. So here we have a typical search result. And so this is a modern search result. So you can see all of these beautiful shopping ads on the right-hand side. By the way, you're going to be able to do this for organic very soon. So this is a new piece of news that's come out recently. So stick around to the end. I'm going to show you how you can get your organic listings into these product results. So you have a dynamic search result. You have Google Ads. They no longer have the big pink strip to tell you that it's an ad. You have these tiny little labels that look like organic results. So you have so much more going on. So the result of this is that with all of this evolution in Google search results, yes, more people are joining, but it's becoming much, much harder and much more complicated. You have to track all of this. You have to tie this all back to your GA data, your ranking data, in order to see what the actual upshot is. Like, no longer can you just say, oh, I type in my query and, oh, I show up number 5, because mobile results, personalized results are different. So the upshot of this is, the takeaway for you here is that the results are way more dynamic. You have lots more opportunity to gain traction, get eyeballs onto your brand, but it's a lot harder. It's become a lot more difficult. So here is where a lot of people get derailed. And in this presentation, I'm going to try and keep it to 3 basic things. And but this is the overall view of how complicated SEO can get. SEO can cross over with design, data science, development, content, PR, even PR it can cross over with. And here's a few examples. This may ring a bell with you at your company at the moment. I don't know. What happens when UX people redesign a page, and for the mobile page, they put a pop-up, sign up to our newsletter. Do they know that that pop-up is perhaps stopping Google from reaching the correct content? What about your PPC guy? So maybe you have a PPC guy in-house and the SEO company external. Are they communicating? PPC can trailblaze, gather data, useful data that SEO can leverage off, and vice versa. maybe even your buyers and planners, when they're planning the next season of your shopping, of your fashion site, are they really going to name the shoes category footwear like they always do? Do they know that people don't really search for footwear, they search for shoes? How is their planning? Are they looking at SEO data? How do they know that Nike isn't less popular than Adidas or vice versa when they do their buying or planning work? So SEO can cross over in multiple ways. So here's my first little advanced tidbit. If all of this is boring to you so far, hopefully not. What about SEO smoke tests? Okay, I'm just going to throw this out there. So for example, like how developers, they write code, and because SEO crosses over with so many different areas, how about writing a unit test or a series of unit tests that look at specifically SEO? So when you do a new deployment, that deploy can't go live unless your canonical tags are still there, your meta description is still where it's supposed to be. So I think that's pretty cool for everyone that's kind of like, yeah, I know, I do research, I've got copywriters, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're going to try and keep it as simple as possible, okay? SEO is difficult, there's a lot going on, but in this presentation, we're going to focus on 3 areas: the foundation, building upwards, and amplifying that build. And in more concrete terms, we're going to look at technical SEO, making sure that your technical SEO is correct. Then, once your foundations are in place, how to build using content, and then how to just accelerate that process with backlinks. Because remember, from the video that we just watched, a core tenet to Google's algorithm, which is proprietary and black box, is the number of backlinks coming into your website. Remember, that's a key thing. It's the amount of people that link to you, because I can always say, hey, I'm a really important page for hotels in New York, and I can put that text everywhere on my page, but I can manipulate that. That's really easy. But to get other people to link to me and to say, that page is important for hotels in New York, that was the genius insight. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to break it down into those 3 sections. So Kevin, you still with me? Is everything still cool?
Perfect.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. So we still got audio and all that kind of stuff. Okay, yeah. So here's the meat and bones of it. This is the stuff I really want to. So I'm going to switch to my browser really often. If it gets annoying or it doesn't work, just let me know. But I really wanted to look at practical examples. And this is something that I or any other good SEO consultant would do with you guys, with you and your brands. We do these kind of exercises. Okay. First concept of your foundation. You've got to lay your foundation properly for your website. It's crawling and indexing. Google is just like a user, but instead of it being a user visiting your website, it is Google software that's visiting your website. They have something called a crawler. And that is, if we have a little bit of time, I've got a crawler prepared on my machine to show you. But basically, it's a piece of software that goes up and it fetches your homepage, for instance, and then it finds all the links on your homepage, and then it begins to crawl your website. And the more important your website is, the more you get crawled. But the problem is, often people are neglecting the foundations of their SEO with broken crawling and broken indexation. So if you do not have something called Google Search Console, you can think of Google Search Console as Google Analytics for SEO. It's a bit of a strange analogy, but it does work. That is what you see on the right-hand side of this slide. This is a typical Google Search Console report, and this gives you really cool data. It shows you how often has Google come to the page, how many to your site, how many pages have they downloaded, how many errors occurred, and then a whole bunch of more arcane kind of details like, is it canonical and all that kind of stuff. So key takeaway number 1 is if you do not have Google Search Console installed and it's free, please get it done, or please check with your marketing department or someone similar that you've got this software. So a typical example of broken crawling, for instance, we have a client at the moment who they did a rebuild and they detected with IP detection all the US visitors, and they redirected all the US visitors to their US website. And you may think, well, okay, that makes sense, right? You've got to do that. But Googlebot is also crawling from a US IP address. So the result is that their Kuwaiti website, their UAE website, the Saudi Arabian website are not getting crawled. So this is the fundamental checks that we have to do on your site to make sure that your crawling there's nothing inimical to discovery of content. And then if you're an advanced user, to make sure that it's as optimized as possible. You don't want Googlebot to crawl crazy parameters all often. So here, my advanced tip for this slide is Nginx or Apache or something like that. That'll have log files. Just go grep for Googlebot, save those as a request text file, and yeah, pop it over to me and I can maybe have a look for you as well. So yeah, that's some analysis that we have to do. So step number one, make sure that you're getting crawled properly. So XML sitemaps, let's have a look, for example. So here is this screen, hopefully, that you can see. This is a typical Google Search Console report. Screaming Frog is the tool that I would use to demo what crawling looks like, that we're not going to do right now. And this is an XML sitemap. Here's a sitemap for makeupshack.co.za. And this is just like Shopping Feeder. It's a feed directly to Google of all your important pages. If you don't have this, or it's out of date, or the links are broken, check with your development department that you can get this fixed as quickly as possible, because that's a direct path that's pointing into all of your important pages. If you're a mega user, if you've got a million, I just made that phrase up, mega user. If you're a mega site of 1 million page plus, then start having to think about on-page links versus XML sitemaps. You don't have to link to every single product on your site. There's no point to it. And it's also going to drag your SEO down. So my advanced tip here would be get your products into your XML site feed and then use internal scoring algorithms that you've hopefully written for your large e-commerce site to inform how you link internally. So you're passing that page rank to the correct pages. So if you're a big site and you've done all your crawling's fine, that's something I'll definitely have a look at. As well, for instance.
Well, before you carry on there, maybe you can just give us very elevator pitch description of what PageRank is, and just kind of like a very high level overview of which would be the most important pages to rank. So if you wanted to put, let's say, like work on the 80-20 principle, and you wanted to put like most of your effort into just a handful of pages, which ones should those be? Should they be product pages? Should they be your home page? Should they be collections or category pages? I'm not sure if you address this in the rest of your presentation, but maybe just like if we're trying to work out how much effort to allocate and potentially budget and time, what are the most important pages to focus on?
Okay, well, that obviously it depends on your business, and it depends on things like marketing strategy and margins and things like that. But to kind of ignore that and try to answer that is that you want to make sure that you are targeting the correct pages, and you can do that with internal and external PageRank. So to go back to your original question, what PageRank is, think about PageRank as a conduit. So if I'm a very authoritative website, like say, for example, I'm the New York Times, and I write an article and I say, by the way, it's been proven that skin butter you put, is really good for your skin. And I link to your site and you're selling those kind of products. Because I'm such an authoritative website, the link that I'm sending to you will be far more valuable than links coming in from smaller websites. But that same concept applies internally. So I talk about this a little bit in the presentation. You can sculpt your internal PageRank the same way. So say, for instance, okay, we've spoken to our supplier in Asia, and next year we're doing bicycles. We're no longer doing, tennis rackets. We're discontinuing tennis rackets. you can already change your internal site structure to create internal links to your bicycle pages to amp that page's page rank up. So it depends on how you shape your internal page rank. And then the question just becomes a business question. Well, how much PPC money am I spending on a keyword versus where am I ranking versus how much page rank do I need to rank? So I'll touch a little bit on that later on in the presentation, but that's an excellent question.
Awesome, thank you. So as a rule of thumb, Paul, would you just say, like by default, your homepage should be the most highly linked to page for any e-commerce store?
I think, and this is exactly this slide. So I think this slide so if you look at this diagram on the right-hand side here, you can see what a typical site structure looks like. Your home page is 99% of the time going to be your most important or your strongest page for SEO. Simply because when people, number one, when people are talking about your brand, they'll say, hey, check out brand name online or whatever, and they'll link to your homepage, typically speaking. But also, you know, in your navigation and in your footer, more often than not, you're going to create links to your homepage. But to try and answer your question and to try and touch on that, let's for example imagine that you have a really important brand page. Let's say it's Samsung. You're selling Samsung products, and you have product pages. Now, Samsung is 11% of your inventory, which is huge, perhaps. Now, you want to make sure that your product pages are linking back up to your Samsung page. So here, for example, you can see you've got multiple different products here at the bottom of the slide, and then you've got subcategory and category above that. So by virtue of how you plan your site, how you develop it, you can create that. It used to be called PageRank sculpting. So yeah, it really depends. And this is another key concept, especially for those of you who have very large websites of 1 million, 5 million plus pages. You have something called crawl budget. And Google will not crawl your website all day until they've found all the pages. They'll crawl and then they'll decide, okay, we've seen enough, and then they'll move on. So in that crawl budget that you have, you want to make sure they get your good content as quickly as possible. So product and category internal scoring, that's the advanced tip on this slide. If you have a data science department, great, get them working on this. Otherwise, consult with your buying team or maybe whoever else it is and consider your site structure. And then finally, before we conclude the foundation level of what we're looking at, JavaScript SEO. And I've put this in here because it's become really trendy to have React and Angular and Vue and all that kind of stuff. Collectively, they're referred to as single-page application websites. Be really careful. I've seen many websites migrate to a single-page application platform and lose all of their SEO overnight. And even the ones that are aware of it and they try to handle it, Google doesn't always execute your JavaScript. So this is a very sure way of, you know, removing the foundations of your building straight away. Is to move to JavaScript SEO, the JavaScript framework, and to not prepare your SEO for it. And it will eliminate your crawling if not handled properly, because JavaScript links are done with on-click events and anchors and things like that. So I think those are the major areas that we want to make sure are in place when we're considering this question, am I indexed? So what you should do is, after the presentation or right now or whenever, go have a look at your website. And you can issue a site command. So let's just try that for a second. So we're doing some live demonstration here. And let's take site, and let's take zappos.com. And if you do the site command over here, you will get search results only from a particular domain. And when I execute a search on top of that, now you can drill in. So what's Zappos' most important page for Nike? No, I always go for Nike. Let's go Adidas high tops and see what comes up. So apparently the most important page is this one, which looks perfect, Adidas high top. So Zappos obviously knows what they're doing. and you can see that this is the most relevant page. So when it comes back to this question of, am I indexed? Go do the site command, go check your XML sitemaps, and make sure that we are at least in the game, that you can at least begin. So,
sorry, Paul, and one thing
sure.
to add there is obviously this is like, if you have a large catalog with a lot of SKUs, you can't go and do this for every product. And you can't write a script, Google will block you, so it'll be challenging. So again, 80-20 principle, choose your best product, your best selling ones, the ones you really want to focus on, and make sure that they're ranked in Google. Just go do your searches, make sure that your site, use the site colon tag and then your URL, and then the keywords that you want to look for, or the brand names or the product names. So just focus on the most important ones and make sure those are ranked, and really work hard to get those listed in Google.
Yeah, very good point, because even if you're a medium site, that is going to be very tedious and difficult to do. So do this as a kind of just an exploration thing of, oh my gosh, my electronics page is not being found. Oh gosh, let's look into this, or whatever it is. So the next, okay, so that might have been a little bit boring for people who are not technically inclined or interested. I think the next one applies to everyone in the virtual room, is that, are my products healthy? So that's a really good question, and we're going to look at what that actually means. So here we have a typical product result, and I want to give you 5, I think it's 5, but I want to give you 5 things to go look at on all of, again, not all of your products, just go pick a product and test it out. Look for these 5 things, and that's a good departure point. Number 1, is your title tag unique? The title, not to be confused with the header that you can read on the page. This is the title tag that sits in the code, the header of the page. Typically in Chrome, for example, when you hover over the tab at the top, that is the title tag. Is your title tag unique, and is your meta description unique and keyword rich? A little bit later, we'll talk about keywords. That's checkpoint 1 and 2. Number 3 is, do you have a H1 tag, and is there only one H1 tag? Number 4 is images, especially with image search. So a couple of years ago, when people Google images, so if you're in jewelry, or if you're in cars, or even fashion, people are very visual, and they do from time to time search images. And since a few years ago, clicking on those image results will take you through to the actual website and not just pop up the image. So image search is something worth doing. So have these checkpoints and make sure that they are in place. And we'll talk a little bit, we'll look at an example in a minute. And for those people that are SEO proficient, how about these suggestions on product pages? What about app deep linking? Do you have an app, and is your app a really high performer in terms of conversions? You can do something called deep linking, so that if I have your app installed on my phone and I search something on Google and your organic result comes up, that click will then take me through to your app rather than your website. So might not be great for SEO statistics at the end of the day, but if your conversion on mobile app is really good, then harness those clicks and send them to the app. If you're a blogger or content strategist, please make sure that when you're talking about ballerina pumps and you're writing about ballerina pumps, embed your products if possible. And then finally, related products. So often you'll see people who also shop the following things. But remember, Google is a crawler and it's not going to have cookies. So it's not going to, if you're generating that stuff with cookie and user behavior stuff, it's not going, those links are not going to appear. So what can you do to generate suggested products that are related? And again, 80-20 principle, make sure that that's the top 20% of products that you push that way. So let's have a look at a specific example. So I skipped over some stuff, so that's pretty bad, but okay. They have something called a kitchen boss. So I suppose if you want to be a boss in the kitchen, you buy a kitchen boss, and it's a blender, as everyone can see, and they've got this nice, beautiful, big image, and you know, it looks good, and they've got related products, and the design is really good, so it's a solid page. And if we have a look at a tool, and all the tools and everything I'll link at the bottom of the presentation, this thing is called Meta Inspector. So you just click on this in Chrome, and you can see here their title tag. The title is Kitchen Boss, and then after that, they basically list the breadcrumbs. So this is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not bad. And then in the description, they've got the description of the products, all in one, chopping, blending, etc. Again, pretty good. So they've at least got a title and description. So that's 1 and 2. What they don't have is an H1 tag. So here you can see warning, missing H1 tag. Now, this is not going to end your SEO, but it's something worth doing. So what I personally would do for them, I consult with them and say, okay, let's look at the name of the product. Let's see how the database is organized. Let's cut out this particular Kitchen Boss text. Let's wrap it in an H1 tag. And then let's just use CSS to style it back together so it looks exactly the same way. So that when Google crawls this page, they get a nice juicy H1, but users still get the user experience. Then something else I would have a chat with is, and for you guys to go home and have a think about, is what data do you have in your database that you can use on a product level to improve your product pages? So what, for instance, what different description elements do you have? So for example, here, because of the way the planning or the buying team or whatever it is, they organize this product into a category called mixes, blenders, and juices, which makes sense. But the thing is, if we massage the data for SEO in a clever way, hopefully with some other data, we can determine that this product is not a mixer and it's not a juicer per se, it's a blender, for instance. Then we can cut out that keyword and we can use that keyword in the title tag. So now we can do something like Kitchen Boss Blender, instead of it being this mixer and blender and kitchen appliance, which is not really focused on what this product is about. So my point here is that take a step back, take a holistic view of your entire product level, and be smart about it. Consult with your developers, look at the database, and see how you can do something to optimize thousands of pages at the same time. And then just for those of you already doing similar kind of stuff, let's have a look here. They do something really cool. They got a really cool review here. They got one very enthusiastic reviewer that's given a 5-star called Anonymous. And Anonymous has posted a review. And great, so that's really cool. So they're collecting review data, which is difficult to do, and they're displaying it on the page. But when you head over to Structured Data Testing Tool and you plug in that URL, you see no data structure is detected. And what structured data is, it tells Google about your products. So not only things like price and stock and availability, but also things like the review, the star ratings and things like that. So for instance, here's an example. Here we can see Takealot, and they've got this very nice, handsome looking 5-star result with 5 to 10 reviews. So our example that we looked at, they collect that review data, but they don't actually use it for SEO purposes. So that's something I would definitely tell them, to say, hey guys, let's use this. And it's quite easy to do that. It's quite easy to mark up. And then my final point on product pages for everyone, and I think this is probably going to be relevant to everyone to some degree. And again, Kevin's Pareto principle, 80-20 things, is highly important here, is the concept of unique content. Google doesn't like, they tolerate it. It's not bad per se. It's not horrendous, but they like unique content. So when you're describing this blender and you're writing text for it, or you're getting text for it, make sure it's unique. So when you pull in descriptions from a manufacturer, fine, and that's okay, but try to make it unique. You don't have to reinvent the book on Kitchen Boss blenders, but you just need to make sure it's unique. And go ahead and do this with some of your products. Take a string of text, put it into Google, do a search, and you'll see here, you'll see it says, you'll see this highlighting of bolded text, and you'll see multiple sites using the same text. This is one of the things, this is how shopping works. I mean, it's not a bad thing. You know, you pull in product descriptions from the manufacturer, but for your top performing products, if you have the resources and the capacity to do it, get somebody to make those descriptions unique. Hire a copywriting company or whatever it is for your top products, because uniqueness is something that's going to be really important for SEO. So,
Paul, I just want to interrupt you there for 2 seconds. We have a couple of questions related to tools and what are the best tools for particular platforms. I think what we'll discuss at the end of the presentation is just a very high level, again, just to recap some of the tools that you use. Some of them will be listed in the presentation, so that's great. And some of the questions are quite specific, like tools for WooCommerce, tools for Shopify. So we'll be able to answer some of those questions a bit later. So if you guys can just hold on, we'll answer those. I'm also looking at the clock, and I'm aware that we're getting close to our allocated time. So I anticipate this to run over, which I think is fine since we all in lockdown and we don't have anywhere to go, so no one's running off to the coffee shop. So guys, if you have to go, we saw one of our viewers was selling disposable masks, and they had to leave. They had some customers waiting to place some orders. So if you do have to go, you're welcome to come back. We might still be here, but also we will definitely be sending around the recording, just to reiterate that. Paul, I just want to stop you right here, because I think this is a great question about ranking. So this question was, what do I do if the wrong page is ranking for a chosen keyword? How do I solve that problem?
Well, that's a really interesting one. So one of the things I would have a look at is to see how many different pages are competing for the same keyword. And then I'd look at your on-page targeting. So for instance, if you have multiple Nike products that are all mentioning Nike white high tops, I would either pick one of them and have the others link to that one, so that when Google crawls, it crawls the correct destination. If that doesn't work and you really want that one page to rank, you would canonical. You would put in a canonical declaration from the duplicates to the original version. But if you want all of them to rank, you would make, to some degree, but you have a preferred version, I would write unique content for all of them and see what the results are. Because sometimes it's nice if someone's typing in makeup brushes, that you get result number 4 and 5, that you get 2 results. So it might be part of your strategy. But if it's cannibalization, canonical, or create internal links to a preferred version.
Yeah, I think those are great tips. I think that's very important to remember. I had 2 product page tips, which I love. You know, I come from 16 years of product information, and my best tip, which is sometimes very hard for merchants, is have a barcode listed on your product page. So a lot of people forget about the barcode, but it's a critical piece of metadata for search. So if you're using some barcode scanning app, they will search Google for barcode in the search field. And if you don't have a barcode listed on your website, your product's never going to get found for that barcode. But also it's a good way to indicate to Google what the product actually is, because Google has a database of barcodes, and it will be able to infer what that product is. It also really helps for Google Ads. So shopping ads have a mandatory requirement for barcodes in a lot of countries. So if you're not collecting barcodes now, please start collecting barcodes, really important. And my second tip is don't copy and paste the information you get from your suppliers verbatim into your product page. Because I guarantee you, if there's 10 people selling that product or 10 merchants selling that product, 9 out of 10 of them are going to have exactly the same content that they also got from the supplier. So if you're trying to avoid duplicate content, try, have 50% of the supplier's information, 50% of your own information, or all of the supplier's information plus some of your own information augmented to that. So it's really important that to create unique content, use what the suppliers give you, but really make it your own, and don't just copy and paste like everyone else will be doing. There are a couple of questions streaming in here, Paul. We'll wait a bit longer, and then I'll pose those to you if that's fine.
Okay. So what should we do? Should we go through the rest, or I can just jump through and highlight? So we're pretty much done with the second section.
Sure.
So yeah, I'll kind of go through it, but maybe a little bit quicker. And I'm happy to answer any more questions that have come in.
Okay, so let's go to the questions quickly. Then we've got 4 that we'll quickly ask. So what is structured data? Let me just give you a couple here. Maybe you can answer them at the same time. So what is structured data? What about a product SKU code? So that's similar to the barcode suggestion that I just gave. And then is it worth trying to rank for a product? Is it not easier to rank for a category? So maybe you can structured data, specific product metadata, I suppose, which is the SKU code, and then product versus category, which page should we rank for?
Okay, well, yeah, that's some good questions. So structured data is essentially a predefined set of data that works according to something called schema.org standards. Okay, so basically that just means people have decided how particular things are communicated in data. So an event has a name, it has a start date, an end date, etc. So using this structured data, and one of those structures is product. So you have a big concept of product, and then underneath product you have price, you have brand, etc., etc. So those structured data standards are internationally declared. And then on your product pages, you can go find in the code your price that may say $59. And where it says $59 in the code, you wrap other code around that and you say structured data price. So that when Google or other search engines process the page, they gain a data insight into the abstract concept of the product, of your particular product. And you can do this with other formats now, like JSON, TLD, I think it is. But the point is that this is a really smart way of communicating all kinds of cool things. I love recipes. I love the recipe example. If you're a retailer and you're selling food online or anything like that, and you're talking about recipes, you can do the ingredients that are covered, the image of what the recipe looks like, and those go into the search results. And you can get a really nice search result if you look at, like, for example here, 19 baked fish recipes. So you can get really rich results with structured data. And the other question I kind of forgot.
The other question is a really good e-commerce question. Like, should you focus on ranking for categories, or should you focus on ranking for products? It's a little bit similar to what we previously discussed, but I suppose this is a fundamental question. Like, where should I put most of my effort in?
That's a really good question, because it boils down to something called, and this is kind of close to the next slide that I wanted to get to, is the concept of intent and volume. So there's a lot of tools out there, AdWords, Keyword Planner, etc., where you can plug in a keyword. If you plug in a keyword, for example, if you say garden furniture, it will tell you 10,000 people per month search for garden furniture. And that on the graph here, that is the curve at the top. It's a 1 or 2 word phrase. So there's a lot of search volume for that. But then on the long tail end, you have something like wicker garden furniture that's good for winter. Those two, that phrase won't have a lot of search volume, a lot of demand, but it'll be much easier to rank for in Google. So the answer is, you've kind of got to do both, but you've got to do it in a smart way. So you're not going to sit through every single product page and do keyword research on five word phrases. But if you're smart about it, you look at your internal linking structure, you look at some of the how your data is organized, You can do that long tail optimization on your product level by doing a few high level important things. But on the other hand, if you want to rank for garden furniture and there's a lot of search demand for it and a lot of competition, you're going to make sure all your fundamentals are correct, the fundamentals we spoke about. And then you want to make sure that you go on a link building campaign, or at least you're looking at some kind of link building where you, and this is where SEO begins to overlap with broader marketing. How can you convince other websites to talk about your garden furniture? And obviously, if you do get rankings for garden furniture, that page will generate a lot more traffic. The conversions may not be as great as a long tail search query. So the two strategies do overlap. And I would say, again, look at your overall offering and be smart. Do your SEO planning 3 months before season, or 3 months, it's going to take a while to do it. So there's two different levels, and yeah, it kind of depends. But yeah.
Sorry, I'm very glad that you touched on backlinks, because I was waiting for this question to come up, and it's been upvoted a couple of times. The question is tips on getting backlinks, question mark. So that's a perennial question when you're talking about SEO. My 2 cents, Paul will give you some good quality technical information, but my 2 cents is, if you produce good quality content and you are a thought leader in your space, backlinks will come, right? So by a thought leader in e-commerce, what does it mean? It means really get to know your product, focus on the products that you want to really get to know, talk about them in forums, talk about them in social media, potentially talk about them on the news or in other sorts of broadcasts. Generally, I think with all the content and the desire for content from news outlets, from reporters and journalists and social media, they're looking for people that are experts in particular categories or verticals or product ranges. So if you can turn yourself into a thought leader or an expert, people will talk to you about those products that you know about. And that means they'll potentially have a video interview. And that video interview will go on the news site, and then maybe they'll link to your product. That's a great way to generate backlinks, by owning product categories that you're really passionate about. It's a big challenge for dropshippers. So I just want to put this out there. Like, generating backlinks as a dropshipper is almost impossible, because you don't really get to know a lot of the products that you're shipping, because you never touch them. They're not tangible. They come from your supplier in Asia straight to your customer, and there's very little interaction. So if you are going to take up a dropshipping strategy, it's really important to choose a subset of products that you can become an expert on, that you can really get to know, that you can build unique content around, that will inherently build backlinks for you. Anyway, that was a digression, but I'm quite passionate about good product content, and obviously it's an organic way to build interest in what you sell. But back to you, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, to your point there, just to kind of take that a little bit further, here's a link to a really good video by a guy called Rand Fishkin, and he is one of the thought leaders in SEO, if not the thought leader. And it's a really cool video where he talks about 10x content. So he's making a really good point in that it's not just good enough doing good SEO nowadays. Maybe in 2011, 2013, it was okay to write a really good blog post. But nowadays, with so much competition, you've got to be 10 times better than the rest. And that's when you gain traction. In the video, he gives an example of how you can take the concept of movie reviews and you can create a piece of 10x content for that. So an example that he's got is this website, and it's the ultimate guide to how a car works. Now, I assume the company that built this either sells cars or does car rental or something like that. But they created this beautiful site that's got videos and guides. And now, obviously, this is a monumental effort and it's difficult. But I guarantee you, if you invest in one piece of content like this every year and you go promote it, the SEO value that that's going to bring into your site is going to be phenomenal. So take the concept of good content, the idea of I'm going to write a really good blog post, and pause that and look at how can I create something that is 10 times better. And then you also got to realize that your link audience is not limited to your specific marketing audience. So if you are based in the UK and you want UK clients and transactions, that is not to say that you should only earn links from UK websites. You can earn links from anywhere in the world and it will help your SEO. Local links are good for local results as well, but the concept is the world's your oyster when it comes to backlinks. So I'm just going to briefly fly through the rest. So here's the concept of expiring products and discontinued products. So the idea is that hopefully what you're doing is when your products are going out of stock, hopefully you have a really good strategy behind that. And generally speaking for SEO is that when your products go out of stock, you want to keep that page live for Google and for users, but you just want to handle it visually to tell them currently out of stock, or maybe you disable the buy button or the cart button. The reason is many people let their out of stock products fall, and then when they bring that product back online again, they've lost all their rankings. So their rankings go up and then they go down again, they go up again. So you want to make sure that your out of stock handling is done properly. And the same with discontinued products. So you have out of stock and you have discontinued. Products that are discontinued, that are never coming back, must be automatically redirected. So when you or Google or anybody visits that discontinued product, you get redirected to the closest category or the closest brand. This will make sure that it's kind of like a bonsai tree. If a branch is struggling, that you kind of snip it off and you make sure that everything grows neatly. Otherwise, you sit with a whole bunch of 404s and your website doesn't grow as well as it can. And then finally, SEO in a vacuum doesn't work. Often you'll hear people saying, oh, I tried SEO, it doesn't work. For instance, if you invest a heck of a lot into writing great content, but your technical is broken, Google can't get to that content, then it's a zero-sum game. Nothing's going to work. So you have these different departments. So every time your UX department does a redesign, make sure that it's SEO friendly. I know UX people hate on-site text, big blocks of text, but that helps SEO. So try to strike the balance. Social media, they can amplify your content. So you write a 10x piece of content, have them go find your link audience. And this obviously with PPC. Your PPC supplier and your SEO supplier or in-house people should be regularly working together, because your conversions are not going to be the same as your competitors' conversions, even if you're in the same country and the same product. So before you start spending all of this SEO effort, and SEO is heavy lifting that takes a long time, run a PPC campaign. So if you've got televisions versus laptops, it's going to take a lot of work to get both of them ranking in the search results. Run PPC ads and go, oh my gosh, people are not actually buying my laptops because I don't have, the MacBooks or whatever it is. So you can have PPC as being the trailblazer for your SEO efforts. And this is a really important topic, is how do I know all of this is working? So I'm doing all this stuff and it takes a long time, but I don't know if this stuff is working. This is very frustrating for business owners, and it is a really tough one. But I've got a few quick insights on that. Get yourself ranking software. This is software that goes and executes searches as Google, and it sees where you are. So instead of you manually typing in, where am I showing up? It tracks it over weeks and months. So here you can see, this is work we did for Pick and Pay, and the top line at the bottom is them, and their rankings have just improved massively. So this is an aggregate of all of their keywords rankings. So the higher the line goes, the closer all of their keywords get to position number one. So we've seen some great results for them. But number one, invest in ranking software and get your PPC guide. If you don't have an SEO guide, get your PPC guide to write, to populate that, to track the performance. Be aware of what non-brand is. your SEO person shouldn't SEO you for your own brand name. You should be showing up #1 for your own brand name. They should be getting you to the top of Google for ranking for lipstick, for ranking for buy software online, whatever it is, non-branded terms. And how do you motivate this? So if you're listening and you're a manager, or if you're a consultant trying to get SEO spend, read this article by Adam Heitzman. That's really good. And I would break it down into 5 steps. So, and I'm going to boil it down, but basically look at what you're spending on AdWords over 6 months. Take all of those keywords, put it through a ranking tool, see where you are. If you're just off the first page, come on, then surely you can put in a bit of effort. If you're lower down, you can use other logic and say, well, look, we've got a lot of traction to make up. Get your rankings, get your average basket size, get your average spend for your non-branded keywords, and then you can do a calculation of how difficult it will be over a period of time and how much ad spend you can save. AdWords spend versus the SEO rankings that you could get. And last in the presentation, some trends. This is not even a future trend, mobile first. If your site is not mobile friendly, please get it mobile friendly as quickly as possible. The future of web is 100% mobile. It's already mobile, to be honest with you. And the mobile rankings and the desktop rankings are not the same thing. Frugal is coming back. Frugal used to be shopping results that was like 10 years ago. So now your Google shopping listings at the top that come from your Merchant Center feed, that perhaps, but definitely your shopping tab is going to have a mix of organic and paid results. So this is an ideal opportunity to get your organic traction in a product listing environment that's traditionally just paid media. And voice and app. So do you notice that when you do a voice search, it's not the same as when you type in a search query? If I type in sneakers 5th Avenue shop, it's probably not going to be the same when I'm speaking. So when I'm speaking into my Google device, Google app, I'm probably going to say sneaker stores on 5th Avenue near me, or that are open right now, or whatever it is. So voice searches is going to change the query length and query complexity. The bird is about Hummingbird, which is a Google algorithm, which I'm not going to talk about now, but it is relevant, trust me. And then the future is AR. I think, I can't remember the movie's name, but there was this movie where they go so far into the past, or so far into the future that they go into the past, and there's this hologram that pops up in this ancient library. And I think that's what Google wants to become. I think they want to basically be this hologram or whatever it is that I can say, okay, Google, how many black shirts do I have? And then it comes back and it says 12. And then I say, because it's got RFID and it can tell how many black shirts I have. And then I say, well, what would I look like in green shirts? And then with AR, it can show me with a green shirt. I don't have to say, where do I buy green shirts? It will automatically send me suggestions of where to buy near me, etc. So I think that's where Google's trying to take things. So we're seeing this evolution away from single keywords that you should target to the concept of user intent and context and location. And now the beginning of AR embedded into Google search results. So I think that's where the future of search is. So that's the presentation. This is us at Kartella. We're offering a webinar special where we can basically sit down for an hour or two. You and I can do a Google Hangout, and we can just go through your website, and we can just start lifting the hood, and we can have a discussion, and we can have a chat, and we can do some of the stuff that we covered in the presentation. And yeah, so I've got 2 slides at the end that hopefully that you can click through for tools, etc. And that's it.
Great. Paul, I think that was amazing. That was probably the best webinar we've had so far, and we've had some crackers, all hosted by me personally. No, really, thank you very much. This is awesome. We're not done quite yet. Maybe you can just end your screen sharing. Then we got you in full screen there. I'm actually just going to put you up at the top. I just want to go through these last few questions because they're actually really insightful, and then we'll go to the results of our polls and discuss that. So we discussed getting backlinks. We discussed category versus product pages. Now, this is a perennial one that comes up, and it's one of my favorites. I'm going to give you my 2 cents, and then I'd like you to elaborate. So the question is, do social media references or sharing help for SEO? So it's a great question, and like SEO has direct and indirect benefits. We know this. So indirectly, I would say yes, because there's some element of sharing and virality. Your brand gets promoted, and then indirectly people will start linking to your brand. But I think what's very important to remember is that any kind of social media platform behind a login, so you're talking about Facebook, you're talking about Instagram, some of them have public, some of them have private. If a post is private or restricted to some kind of community, it will not add any value to your SEO ranking. However, if there are public posts, so if you post it on Facebook to the world, those are publicly accessible. Twitter, for example, is publicly accessible. Some Instagram posts obviously are publicly accessible. So that's just the way you need to look at it. If you're gonna go for a social media strategy, or if you're gonna do sharing or posting or some kind of content strategy on social media, just remember that if the posts are restricted to a particular group or a forum or a whatever it is, they will only be accessible behind a login, and Google won't be able to access them. But public posts are great. So Paul, I don't know what your take is on social media, and how do you, like, what's your number 1 tip for using social media to grow your backlinks?
Okay, good question. Yeah, so I think that's a perfect explanation, and something I'd like to add to that as well is the concept of no follow. So if you look at a typical link on the web, it's called the anchor elements. There is an attribute called no follow, and that no follow attribute won't change the link at all. You'll be able to see the link just like anyone else, and it will be a normal link. But Google won't chalk up any SEO value onto that backlink. And links from social media platform, they're almost always no followed. So those no follow links won't help you in terms of SEO. It doesn't mean you shouldn't get them, because for branding and just for general social media and traction and direct traffic, it's a really good idea. So that's just something to be aware of. And I think a way to use social media to build backlinks is a way to build audiences. So I think if you especially right now, if you have a sales team or internal team that have a bit of downtime, perhaps go through your social media following and try to figure out, of those people, which of those people have a website? So maybe in their profile, they'll say, mommy blog, whatever, makeup mommy blog, or whatever it is. So you can try and do that manually, or you can use some tools, but you can use your following to try and see who of them actually have websites. And then what you can do is you can put that into an email outreach list, or you can contact those people separately. Or what I really like the idea is that you identify those people that are perhaps not in your following, but are big in your industry. And so when you're crafting your 10x piece of content and you're in the development phase, the concept development, not programming, reach out to them and ask them, we're thinking of, we've got a electronics site and you do unboxing videos, and we want to talk about, what you can do with Bluetooth beyond just Bluetooth, and pitch them the idea and perhaps get them their feedback. And the thing is, if they work with you on the idea and you say to them, hey, that thing that you gave us advice on, we published that, there's a chance that they would then tweet about it and maybe link to it. So you kind of identify these people and you pull them in that way. It is difficult, but yeah. So I would say that's probably my best tip.
Yeah, awesome. I think a great way also to use social media is to build a following of trusted people, people that trust you. And then when you post stuff on social media, they'll go to your web version and they'll probably, again, like link to it themselves, exactly like Paul mentioned. So a much of backlink building is about building trust with the people that you want to link back to you. And that's just like, if you get that right, it'll just organically grow. Your backlinks will grow. I think that's very important. Paul, we've had like stellar comments over here. I thought there were questions, but actually just people saying that the webinar was amazing and they loved it. So I got excited. I thought I had lots of questions to answer, but it was a very, very informative, complex matters made simple. Thanks, Paul. Great SEO tips. So that's awesome. There is one question here, which I think from a shopping feeder perspective, we can probably help answer. Do Google Ads help with SEO? So I think the basic answer there is no. They don't directly help you with your SEO ranking, but just like Paul mentioned, they give you great insights into what's happening in the market. So what are the trends? What are the keywords people are searching for? What am I ranking for? What are my competitors ranking for? How am I ranking above my competitors? And then you can tailor your SEO strategy around those results. So PPC is a great, like if you see like a sliding scale over time, PPC is the first thing that you do. You go out there and you start your paid campaign, and you can start immediately. You can have ads running in a couple of hours. If it's a Google shopping campaign, it'll take a couple of days for Google to approve your product. Shopping Feeder will help you with that. But you can start advertising immediately. In the background, you start building your SEO strategy. And the timeline for SEO is long. Like, SEO is not today. Unless you're the only one selling Kevin's Wazoogle bobbly gook shoelace fastener, cool, I'm going to rank immediately because there's no other content on the web about that, and I'll be number one because there's no number 9 to 10. But like SEO is a long-term strategy that you've got to do in the background while you get all your fundamentals right. Starting advertising immediately is the way to go, right? And then you will start gaining insights from that paid advertising. What are the keywords? How am I ranking? How can I do better? And you can implement that in the background SEO strategy so that after a few months, you can start ranking for the keywords and you can decrease your PPC spend on those keywords that you're now ranking for. One of the things I'm quite passionate about avoiding is ranking number 1 for a keyword and running paid ads. Probably the biggest waste of money. So if you ever see that happening, often it happens on brand terms. So if we do that by mistake, let us know. But if you see a paid ad and you the first organic result, just stop your paid ad. It's not that relevant. Unless there's some other call out extensions or whatever that you really want to advertise, I would just don't waste money on paid ads on your brand if you're already number 1. If you're not number 1, get those paid ads there because you've got to be number 1 for your own brand terms. Yeah, so that was some general stuff. Just quickly, we're going to go to the poll. Paul, interestingly, it's almost a 50-50 split in terms of whether people have someone dedicated to SEO. So that's not a little concerning, I would say, but I would say those people that don't have at least one person or resource dedicated to SEO, it's a really, really, really important aspect of running any kind of online platform, whether you're an online retailer or a blog or a news outlet or a charity, whatever you are, SEO is a fundamental aspect of building an online business. And it's really important. I can't stress it enough. It really is a strategy that's as important as paid marketing, probably more important because it saves you money in the long run. So I would suggest those of you, there's a considerable number of you, get in touch with Paul. He'll be very happy to help you out. He is running that promotion. I think $50 is kind of, even at the current exchange rate we have, $50 is actually a really, it's insignificant when you think about the value that good SEO can add. I mean, you can spend $50 in ads in a day, and with SEO, you could have saved that. So I think it's really important that you take SEO seriously, or an SEO strategy seriously, and that you do implement at least the fundamentals. Now, one of the quick things I wanted to mention is that many of us are using cloud-based e-commerce services. So I'm talking about Shopify or BigCommerce, any of these cloud-based e-commerce platforms come with themes, and even Magento, PrestaShop, WooCommerce, they'll come with themes. Now, the theme developers would have built some technical SEO that they thought was great, but sometimes they would have probably had no knowledge of technical SEO. So just because you have a great looking theme doesn't mean that has the underlying fundamentals in place. So those are, it's the structured data, it's the meta tags, it's all of the things that Paul mentioned. So beautiful looking themes don't necessarily equal great SEO. And I think that's something very important to remember. So if you have some concerns about your particular platform and the theme that you're using, contact Paul, get his advice. I would really make sure that that is something that you guys take into account, because again, it's this battle between UX and marketing and SEO and technical teams. Like, mine is beautiful, it works properly, correct, but you haven't done the fundamentals. So I think it's very important that when you're thinking about SEO, that is something that you consider. Yeah, so there's one last thing left to do. I did mention that we have a promotion going around, and if there are any new customers to Shopping Feeder, or if you're not yet a Shopping Feeder customer, what I'm going to do is just use this little tool here. We haven't used it before, to send you a promo for using Shopping Feeder. So Shopping Feeder obviously will help you extract your product data out of your online store, create beautiful feeds for you, and help you submit those feeds to Google Ads or Price Check or Bing Shopping or Share a Sale or Facebook Dynamic Product Ads, whatever it may be. We'll build you out of the box, ready to go feeds for those. Here's a little free month on our premium package, which is $219 worth of Shopping Feeder. So we'll also help you manage your ads for your first month. So we'll throw that in for free. That's a total of over $500 of value there. So I'm just popping this link here. If you are not yet using Shopping Feeder, you'll be able to sign up with this coupon. So you guys have probably seen that pop up. It just says get coupon. So feel free to test that out. The coupon should be preloaded into our registration form. If you're not a Shopping Feeder user, sign up now. We'll help you through most of these topics. And if you need to get in contact with Paul, all his details will be in there, but we can also put you in contact with him and help you with analyzing some of your page results and pushing those into SEO strategy as well. So Paul, a very, very big thank you to you. I think this is awesome. It's going to be tough to kind of carry on our webinar series at this level of content. I think we're going to have to get you back. Maybe you can talk about something else. You talk about, I don't know, retailing shoes, maybe how to do fashion. I don't know, some general topic, because I think this is really good. So thank you very much. It was great.
Cool. Thank you very much.